control. Have you ever stopped yourself from showing a man you like him because a voice inside whispered, control, what if I scare him away? That thought alone is powerful enough to paralyze you, leaving you frozen between desire and fear. On one side is the longing to connect, control, to be seen, to be chosen. On the other is the fear of rejection, of being too much, too soon, and losing him before he even has the chance to know who you really are, control. This inner conflict is exhausting, and it leaves so many people trapped in hesitation, waiting for a moment of certainty that never comes. The truth is, you're not alone. Control. Almost every woman has felt the sting of overthinking in the early stages of attraction. You replay conversations in your head, analyzing every word, every glance, control, wondering if you've revealed too much or not enough. You convince yourself that the smallest move might ruin everything. And that fear keeps you from taking action, control, from leaning into the connection that could grow into something beautiful. But here's what you need to realize, control. The fear of being rejected is often far more damaging than rejection itself. At least rejection sets you free. Fear keeps you stuck. Fear silences you, control. And silence can slowly erase opportunities before they ever begin. What makes this fear so heavy is the illusion that showing interest will automatically push him away, control. You imagine him running, panicking, pulling back because you dared to reveal your heart. But that is not the full truth, control. What pushes men away is not your interest, it's the pressure that sometimes comes attached to it. Interest is natural, it's human, it's what draws two people together, control. Pressure, however, is what creates the sense of being trapped. And this is where the balance must be understood. When you hold back out of fear, control, you cut off the very spark that could ignite something real. When you overextend and force affection, you smother the flame before it has time to breathe, control. But when you strike that balance, when you show just enough to let him know he matters without rushing or overwhelming, something extraordinary happens. Control. He doesn't feel fear. He feels curiosity. He feels excitement. He feels the freedom to move closer on his own. And that is when attraction grows naturally without force, control. This is why you're here right now, because deep down, you know you want to master this balance. You don't want to live in the shadows of hesitation anymore. Control. You don't want to waste your energy second guessing yourself, wondering if you're too much or not enough. You want clarity. You want confidence, control. You want to know the formula that allows you to show your heart without losing your power. That formula exists. It's not about playing games. It's not about manipulation, control. It's about understanding human psychology and learning how to channel your natural energy in a way that invites connection instead of fear. And here's the promise, control. If you stay with me, you will not only learn how to show him you like him without scaring him away, you will also unlock a deeper strength within yourself, control. Because this isn't just about him, it's about you. It's about breaking free from fear, control. It's about reclaiming the courage to express yourself boldly while still holding your dignity, control. It's about becoming the kind of woman who no longer hides her interest, but also no longer compromises her worth. That's what we're building here. Step by step, control. And by the end, you will walk away with more than a strategy. You'll walk away with a shift in who you are and how you love. Attraction is not built in extremes, control. It does not thrive when you hide your feelings out of fear, and it does not grow when you overwhelm someone with constant attention. Control. Real attraction is created in balance, the middle ground where interest feels genuine, but never suffocating. Think about how powerful balance is in every part of life. Control. Too much water drowns a plant, too little, and it withers. The same is true in relationships. A man feels safest and most drawn to a woman who shows she cares, control, but does not demand that care be returned on her timeline. When you reveal just enough interest, you give him something that sparks both comfort and curiosity. Comfort, control, because he knows you appreciate him. Curiosity, because you have not handed everything away at once. That combination is magnetic. Control, it is what keeps him leaning in rather than pulling back. And this is not about tricking him or holding back who you are, control. It is about understanding that healthy attraction is not rushed. It is built piece by piece with space for both people to breathe, control. Psychologists call this principal reciprocity, We are wired to respond to what is given to us. When you smile at someone, they feel the impulse to smile back. Control. When you show kindness, most people instinctively want to return it. Attraction works the same way. If you give a little control, he is far more likely to meet you with the same energy. But if you flood him with too much at once, his natural instinct is to step back to regain balance. Control. Human nature is always searching for equilibrium. That is why balance is not about hiding your emotions. It is about showing them with confidence, control, in doses that create connection instead of pressure. When you give him a compliment, let it stand without chasing validation in return. When you show interest, control, allow him the space to reciprocate. The moment you stop demanding an outcome, you shift into a place of strength. He does not feel cornered, he feels invited, control. And invitations are far more powerful than expectations. This balance also protects you. Because when you learn to express interest with restraint, control, you teach yourself a vital truth. You are not defined by how he responds. You are expressing because you are confident enough to share control, not because you need his reaction to validate your worth. That inner freedom is what makes your presence magnetic. Control. Men are drawn to women who radiate both openness and self-respect because that combination signals strength without intimidation. Control. And this balance is the foundation of the formula. Too much energy directed outward looks like desperation. Too little looks like disinterest. Control. But the sweet spot, the place where attraction grows, is when your actions say, I like you, but I don't need you to define me. That unspoken message is irresistible. Control. It calms his fear of being trapped while also stirring his desire to pursue. This is the shift that transforms your experience with men. When you understand balance, control, you stop fearing rejection. You stop asking, what if I'm too much? Or what if I'm not enough? Instead, you move with certainty, control, knowing that the right man will always lean into your balanced energy. Because what balance truly communicates is this: you are confident, you are intentional, control, and you are in control of how you show up in love. And that is the kind of woman no man can ignore. Control. One of the deepest truths about men that often goes unnoticed is how much they fear pressure. It is not the expression of interest that unsettles them, control, but the weight of expectation that sometimes comes attached. When a man feels that he is being pushed towards something faster than he is ready for, his instinct is to withdraw. Control. This is not weakness, it is human psychology. At the core of every person is a deep desire for freedom, the space to move at their own pace, control, the room to choose rather than feel forced. When that freedom feels threatened, even unintentionally, attraction can quickly shift into resistance, control. This is why so many women are left confused when they show affection and suddenly feel a man pulling back. It is not always because he doesn't like you. More often, control. It is because he senses pressure, and pressure is heavy. It makes him feel that he is losing control over his choices, control, and nothing creates distance faster than the fear of being trapped. If you understand this, you hold the power to change everything. Because once you know what triggers fear, control, you also know how to create safety. Showing interest without pressure is not about silence or pretending you don't care, control. It is about expressing yourself in a way that leaves him room to breathe. When you say something kind, let it exist without attaching a need for immediate reassurance. Control. When you lean in, don't follow it with demands. Your energy says, I like you, but it also says, trust you to decide how to respond. That trust is powerful. Control. It disarms fear. It allows him to lean closer instead of backing away. Men are not running from love. They are running from the loss of choice. The moment you understand that, control, you shift your focus from control to invitation. You stop trying to pull him forward and start allowing him to step in willingly. Control. This is the key difference between pressure and attraction. Pressure suffocates, attraction breathes, and this does not make you passive. It makes you wise. Control. Restraint is not weakness, it is strength in motion. It shows that you are secure enough to let things unfold without needing to grip tightly. That kind of confidence is rare, control, and it is magnetic. It tells him you are not desperate for his approval, but that his presence in your life would be valued, control. That balance is what allows him to feel both wanted and free, and those two emotions together create the strongest foundation for connection, control. This understanding frees you from one of the greatest lies, that interest equals desperation. It doesn't. Interest delivered with confidence is irresistible. Control. Interest delivered with pressure is repelling. The difference lies not in the words you use, but in the energy behind them. Your tone, your pace, control, your calmness, all of these speak louder than what you actually say. If your energy says, I need you to respond, he will resist. If your energy says, I like you, control, but I am whole without you, he will be drawn in. Mastering this truth allows you to walk in dating with calm certainty. You no longer chase, over-explain, control, or panic at his silence. Instead, you radiate a calm presence that feels safe and inviting. And when a man feels safe in your energy, he is not scared away. Control. He is pulled closer step by step, not because you forced him, but because you gave him the gift of freedom. Control. The most powerful way to show interest without creating fear is through subtle signals. Human beings are wired to notice what is unsaid more than what is spoken. Control. A glance held a second longer, a gentle smile, the way your body leans slightly toward his when he speaks. These are signals that communicate interest without a single word. Control. They are light, effortless, and powerful because they don't trap him, they invite him. Subtlety works because it awakens curiosity. Control. Curiosity is what makes someone want to lean closer, to learn more, to move toward you instead of away from you. Control. Think about the difference between a forceful declaration and a quiet signal. A forceful declaration leaves no room for imagination. It demands a response. Control. But a subtle signal is like a spark. It ignites thought. It lingers in his mind. It draws him back because it leaves him wanting to know more. Control. That is why subtle interest is far more magnetic than bold, heavy gestures. It makes him feel something, but it doesn't overwhelm him. It gives him space to interpret, control, to pursue, to act on his own. Psychology confirms that subtlety creates stronger attraction because the brain is addicted to mystery. Control. What is only partially revealed becomes irresistible. Our minds fill in the blanks, and in doing so, we become more invested. Control. When you smile at him in a way that feels intentional yet light, he wonders what you mean. When you listen with focus and let your eyes communicate warmth, control, he feels your interest without needing you to declare it. These signals bypass fear because they are not demands. They are invitations. Control. And here is the beauty of subtle signals. They protect your dignity. You are not exposing everything. Control. You are not laying your heart bare on the table for someone who has not earned it yet. You are simply letting your energy speak. Energy never lies. Control. It is the calmness in your voice, the openness in your body language, the confidence in your eyes. Men notice these things more than words. In fact, control. Studies show that the majority of communication is nonverbal. This means how you show up energetically is always louder than what you say. Control. Subtlety also keeps you from slipping into over-effort. Over-effort is exhausting for you and for him. It sends the signal that you are chasing control, that you are trying to convince him of your value. But subtle signals come from a place of already knowing your value. You are not trying to prove. You are simply expressing control. That difference shifts everything. A man can feel when your energy is rooted in confidence, and that is what makes him drawn to you instead of guarded against you. Control. This is not about hiding or pretending to be someone you're not. It's about understanding the rhythm of attraction. Control. Just like music is not only about the notes, but also the silence between them, attraction is not only about the words, but the pauses, the glances. Control. The energy that flows in the spaces in between. Subtle signals are those pauses. They let him feel without being overwhelmed. They draw him in without pushing. Control. When you embrace subtlety, you gain control over how you show interest. You are no longer waiting for the perfect words or overanalyzing every move. Control. You trust your energy to communicate what your words cannot. And when your energy is calm, warm, and balanced, he feels it. He is not scared. He is intrigued. Control. He is pulled closer, not because you demanded it, but because you allowed curiosity to do its work. This is the quiet strength that makes your presence unforgettable. Control. What speaks louder than any subtle signal, louder than any word you could ever say, is the energy you carry into every interaction. Control. Energy is the invisible force that shapes how people feel in your presence. A man may not remember the exact words you use, but he will always remember how you made him feel. Control. If your energy is tense, anxious, or desperate, he will sense it instantly. If your energy is relaxed, grounded, and open, he will feel drawn to it without even knowing why. Control, attraction is not built on rehearsed lines, it is built on the emotional state you radiate. Men are naturally drawn to warmth, and warmth cannot be faked. Control. It comes from within, from the confidence of knowing you don't need to perform, you don't need to force anything, you don't need to prove your value. Control, you already carry it. When you embody this state, your presence communicates safety. Safety is magnetic because it lowers defenses. When he feels safe in your energy, control, he is not calculating his next move. He is not guarded. He is not bracing for pressure. Instead, he relaxes, and in that relaxation, attraction flourishes. Control, psychologists have shown that nonverbal cues make up the majority of human communication. This means your posture, your tone, your expressions, control, and your calmness speak louder than words ever could. When your energy is steady, it tells him you are not easily shaken. When your energy is open, control, it tells him you are approachable without being needy. When your energy is confident, it tells him you value yourself, which makes him value you even more. Control. This is why cultivating the right energy is more important than overthinking strategy. You can memorize every piece of advice, but if your energy feels heavy, control. The connection will not flow. People are drawn to lightness because it feels refreshing. They are drawn to calmness because it feels rare. Control. They are drawn to confidence because it feels inspiring. Your energy becomes a silent invitation, one that says, I enjoy being here with you, control, but I am whole on my own. That message is irresistible. And this is where many fall into the trap of over effort. Over effort shifts your energy into chasing, control. And chasing always carries desperation. But when you step back and root yourself in presence, everything changes. You no longer feel the need to impress him with every word, control. You no longer panic over silence. You no longer measure your worth against his reactions. Instead, control. You radiate the kind of quiet confidence that tells him you are not seeking permission to be valuable. You already are. When you cultivate this energy, control, you also protect yourself from emotional chaos. You stop giving away your power with every shift in his behavior. If he texts less, you remain steady, control. If he pulls back slightly, you remain grounded. This steadiness is not only attractive, it is liberating because it means you are no longer a prisoner to his choices. Control, you are free, and freedom is the most magnetic energy of all. Every glance, every smile, every word you share becomes amplified when it is carried on the foundation of calm, control, confident energy. He feels it, he trusts it, and trust is what makes attraction safe. When your energy communicates that you are both open and secure, control, he is not afraid to move closer. He is drawn in, not because you pushed, but because your presence created a space where attraction could grow naturally without fear. Control. One of the simplest yet most overlooked ways to show interest without fear is through genuine compliments. A compliment, when offered with sincerity, has the power to disarm, control, to uplift, and to create a moment of connection that feels effortless. Men, just like women, crave recognition, control. They want to feel noticed not only for how they look, but for the effort they put into their lives, their choices, their character, control. When you take the time to acknowledge something about him that feels specific and real, control. You're not just flattering him, you're speaking to his core need to feel respected and valued. What makes a compliment powerful is not extravagance, but intention, control. It's not about grand declarations or showering him with endless praise. It's about saying just enough to let him know you see him. The psychology behind this is simple, control. People open up more when they feel recognized. Validation builds trust. And trust is the soil where attraction takes root, control. When you highlight something about him that others may overlook, his dedication to his work, the way he listens when someone speaks, control. The thoughtfulness in his actions. You're signaling that you are paying attention. That attention is rare, and rare things are always valuable. The key is authenticity, control. Empty words ring hollow, and a man will sense when you're saying something just to get a reaction. Authentic compliments come from presence, from truly noticing, control. And when they come from this place, they carry an energy that is undeniable. They don't overwhelm him. They don't create pressure, control. They simply make him feel good in your presence. That good feeling becomes linked to you, and without effort, he begins to associate you with positive emotion, control. That is how attraction deepens. It's important to understand that compliments are not about control. They are not a tool to manipulate him into liking you, control. They are a reflection of your ability to give freely without expectation. When you can say something kind and let it stand without needing anything in return, control, you radiate strength. You show that your words come from abundance, not scarcity, control. You are not giving because you are desperate to win his approval. You are giving because it is natural for you to recognize value. That kind of generosity is rare, control, and it makes you unforgettable. Men, at their core, are often starving for words of affirmation. Society teaches them to be strong, to hide weakness, control, to push forward without complaint. Because of this, many men carry silent doubts they will never admit. A simple control, well placed compliment can pierce through those doubts in ways you may not realize. It tells him he is seen, he is appreciated, and he is enough, control. And when a man feels enough in your presence, he is not scared away. He is pulled closer, control. Because you've touched something deeper than attraction. You've touched his sense of worth. This is the courage of complimenting, control. It takes boldness to express admiration without overthinking how it will be received. But when you step into that courage, you create moments that stick with him, control. Moments that replay in his mind long after the words were spoken. A compliment is more than a gesture. It's a reminder that connection doesn't have to be complicated, control. It can be as simple as recognizing the good in someone else and letting them feel it. When you master this, control, you won't just show him you like him, you'll show him you have the strength to give without fear, and that is the kind of energy no man wants to walk away from, control. The mistake most people make is believing that worth is something to be proven, something that must be validated by another person's approval, recognition, or affection, control. But the truth is far deeper. Worth is not earned by performance, it is uncovered by presence. The more you try to prove yourself, the further you drift from yourself, control. And the more you chase after validation, the more you train your own mind to believe it is incomplete without external confirmation. That's why so many people, control, even those who appear confident, carry an emptiness inside. They are living for applause, not alignment. They are living for eyes watching them, control, instead of living for the quiet power within them. If you want to step into a life that commands respect, you must stop begging for it. Respect is not won by chasing control. It's drawn by embodying. Think about the people who move silently yet command the room, who say little but speak volumes, who need nothing yet seem to have everything, control. Their power doesn't come from what they say. It comes from what they refuse to seek. They are not desperate for attention, control, because they know attention without substance is nothing but noise. They are not afraid of being overlooked because they know true value never goes unnoticed, control. The essence of real confidence is rooted in detachment. It is the ability to walk into any situation without the craving to be seen because you already see yourself, control. This is where inner strength begins in the decision to no longer depend on others to validate your existence, control. It is the recognition that no amount of external approval can ever fill the void that comes from abandoning yourself. That void only closes when you reclaim your own center, control. When you decide that your value is not negotiable, you are not valuable because someone chose you. You are not valuable because someone praised you. Control. You are valuable because existence itself is the proof. The fact that you are here breathing, conscious, alive, control. Carrying a mind that can think and a soul that can feel, that is your evidence. The challenge is not to convince the world of your worth, control. The challenge is to stop convincing yourself that you need the world to see it. Every time you fight for attention, you drain your strength, control. Every time you shape yourself to please, you dilute your power. Every time you silence your truth for acceptance, you abandon the very thing that makes you magnetic, control. The most irresistible force in this world is authenticity, and authenticity is impossible when your focus is on performance rather than presence. The paradox is this, control. When you stop trying to be noticed, you become unforgettable. When you stop chasing attention, you create an aura that attracts it naturally, control. And when you stop begging for love, the right kind of love begins to flow toward you. This shift does not happen overnight. Control. It requires unlearning years of conditioning that taught you to measure yourself against others, to seek approval like oxygen, to believe rejection diminishes you. Control. But rejection is not a verdict, it is redirection. Ignorance from others is not a reflection of lack within you. It is proof they cannot see what you carry. Control. And the moment you realize their inability to recognize your worth has nothing to do with your reality, you free yourself. Control. Freedom comes when your self-image is no longer chained to their perception. Your task is not to become louder, flashier, or more noticeable. Your task is to become rooted. Control. Rooted in your truth, rooted in your discipline, rooted in the knowledge that you do not have to shout to be powerful. The deeper your roots, control, the higher your presence will rise. When you are anchored in self-respect, you will notice something extraordinary. People start to lean in. Control. They begin to feel your energy without you asking for it. And the ones who overlook you, control. They are simply clearing the path for those who will never fail to recognize what you bring. Control. The battle ends the moment you stop fighting for scraps of attention and start building an inner foundation no one can take away. The world bends not for the desperate, control, but for the grounded. The moment you stand firm, you discover a truth that changes everything. You were never meant to beg for the light. You were born to carry it. Control. The reason many never rise above mediocrity is not because they lack intelligence, talent, or opportunity, but because they cling to comfort as if it were safety. Control. Yet comfort is not safety. It is stagnation disguised as peace. It dulls ambition, numbs hunger, and convinces the soul that what is ordinary is enough. But deep down, control. You know it isn't. You feel the dissonance when you silence your own potential, when you settle for less than the fire burning within you demands. Control. That ache inside is not weakness. It is proof that your life is meant for more. Greatness does not belong to those who avoid discomfort. Control. It belongs to those who make discomfort their ally. It belongs to those who willingly place themselves in the tension between who they are and who they could become. Control. And refuse to back down. The mind resists it, the body fears it, but the spirit thrives on it. Every time you lean into difficulty instead of retreating, control. You are expanding the borders of who you are. You are training yourself to be the kind of person who can carry weight others would collapse under. The truth is control. You are not defined by what you avoid. You are defined by what you endure. Every storm you walk through leaves behind a version of you that is sharper, stronger, control, and less afraid of the world. Struggle strips away illusion. Pressure destroys pretenses, and challenge forces you to confront the parts of yourself you would rather ignore. Control, it is in those moments that character is forged. Without them, there is no depth, no resilience, no unshakable confidence. People search for shortcuts, for easy paths, control, for ways to bypass the grind. But shortcuts cheat you out of strength. They may bring you a result, but not the resilience required to sustain it. Control. What you gain easily slips easily away. What you fight for, what you bleed for, control. What you wrestle with until you conquer, those victories embed themselves into your very identity. They become a part of who you are, and no one can take them from you. Control. And this is why life will not stop testing you. It knows that without tests, you would never discover what you are capable of. Without resistance, control, you would never find your power. Without the friction of challenge, you would never ignite the flame of your own greatness. Control. That pain you feel when you're stretched beyond your comfort zone is not punishment, it is preparation. Control. It is life shaping you into the version of yourself strong enough to carry the destiny waiting for you. You were not created to live small, quiet, unnoticed. Control. You were designed to leave an imprint so powerful it ripples beyond your years. But that requires transformation, and transformation requires fire. The fire of failure, control, of rejection, of long nights and lonely roads, it is not meant to destroy you. It is meant to burn away everything unworthy of the life you're called to live. Control. And when you emerge from it, you will not be the same. You will be refined, unstoppable, unshakable. So stop running from the discomfort. Control. Stop trying to escape the very thing designed to build you. Stand in it. Endure it. Embrace it. Because the moment you decide that you will no longer be broken by the weight, control, but built by it, that is the moment everything changes. That is the moment your life begins to align with the greatness you've always known was inside of you. Control. The world has trained you to seek validation outside of yourself, to measure your worth by how others see you, by what they give or withhold. But the truth is control. The moment you allow your identity to be shaped by someone else's recognition, you have already handed them the keys to your peace. Every glance, every text, control. Every approval becomes a lifeline, and without it, you feel starved. That is why you must reclaim what was always yours: the power to define yourself, control, to stand unmoved whether the world applauds or ignores you. Real strength is found when your value is no longer negotiable, control. When it does not rise or fall on someone else's inconsistency. You cannot chase what is fleeting and expect to feel whole. People's attention drifts, their moods change, control, their desires shift. If you tie your self-worth to that, you will live in a constant storm, always adjusting your sails to winds you do not control. Control. Freedom begins when you decide that your worth is fixed, unshaken, untouchable. Control. When you stop begging for presents from those who cannot even remain loyal to their own promises. Control. When you stop questioning your enoughness every time silence replaces the response you wanted. Control. The weight lifts the moment you realize you were never designed to be at the mercy of their attention in the first place. Control. Every time you withdraw your energy from where it isn't reciprocated, you create space for deeper growth. Control. The absence of their validation becomes the very soil where your independence takes root. And the irony is this: when you no longer demand to be noticed, control, you become impossible to ignore. There is an energy about someone who is centered, who moves without chasing, who radiates without needing permission. Control. It is the quiet confidence that draws more power than any desperate attempt for acknowledgement. Understand this deeply: your silence speaks louder than your pleas. Control. Your absence carries more weight than your over-explanations. Your refusal to fight for crumbs forces others to face the reality of what they lost. Control. But this was never about them, it was about you. About choosing yourself in a world that constantly trains you to abandon yourself. Control. About breaking free from the endless cycle of needing someone else's mirror to prove you exist. The most magnetic force you can embody is self-respect. Control. The moment you choose it, something shifts in the way you walk, the way you speak, the way you carry yourself. People feel it. They sense it. They may not understand it, control, but they are drawn to it. And those who are not, those who only thrived on your insecurity, will quietly fade. Let them. Control. Because their departure only clears the path for connections built on strength, not dependency. You are not meant to spend your life performing for scraps of approval. Control. You are meant to stand as a force, whole without applause, steady without reassurance, powerful without attention. That is where your freedom lives. Control. That is where your energy becomes unstoppable. And the moment you decide to stop chasing what was never meant to define you, control, you step into a version of yourself that commands respect without even asking for it. That is when you finally understand you were never waiting to be chosen. Control. You were always the choice. Control. Most people live their entire lives trapped in the illusion that someone else will eventually hand them permission to become who they're meant to be. Control. They wait for validation, for applause, for recognition that will finally allow them to step into their own greatness. But the truth is, no one is coming to crown you. Control. No one is going to reach out and say, now it's your turn. That responsibility, that sacred moment of choosing yourself, will always belong to you. Control. And the longer you wait, the more you hand over your power to forces that were never meant to hold it. The mind is a battlefield where every doubt, every insecurity, control. Every whisper of fear is trying to convince you to stay small. It's trying to seduce you into believing that safety lies in blending in doing what's expected, control, and never rocking the boat. But deep down, you know safety has a hidden cost. It strips you of your fire. It suffocates the very spark that was designed to set your life ablaze. Control. Every time you choose comfort over courage, a piece of your potential is buried. And eventually, if you keep doing it, you don't just lose opportunities, you lose yourself. Control. Strength isn't built when life feels easy. It's forged when everything inside of you screams for the escape route, but you choose to stand anyway. Control. It's built when you silence the urge to hide and instead decide to expand into the discomfort. That's the moment when fear starts losing its grip on you, control, because you prove to yourself that you can feel fear without bowing to it. And once you learn that, nothing can enslave you again. Fear may visit, but it can never own you, control. You must understand that becoming who you are requires sacrifice, not of your worth, not of your integrity, but of the false layers you've worn to keep the world comfortable, control. You'll have to let go of approval. You'll have to let go of being understood by everyone. You'll have to let go of the need to always look flawless, always be liked, control, always be chosen. Because the raw truth is the higher you rise, the more people will misunderstand you. The more you shine, control, the more your light will trigger those still hiding in shadows. But that isn't a sign to dim yourself, control. It's proof that you're finally walking the path that few are willing to take. There is a version of you waiting on the other side of your hesitation, a version so powerful, control, so unshakable that the noise of the world cannot touch them. But that version of you isn't unlocked through waiting. They are revealed through action, through boldness, control, through the decision to walk into uncertainty with your head held high. Every step you take into discomfort, every choice you make that prioritizes growth over ease, control, chisels away the limits you thought defined you. The moment you stop bargaining with your potential and start owning it, the game changes, control. You no longer chase approval. You command respect. You no longer cling to what's safe. You expand into what's possible, control. And you no longer apologize for your power. You embody it fully without compromise. That is when your presence begins to carry weight, control. That is when the world stops overlooking you, not because you begged for attention, but because you've become impossible to ignore, control. And that is the life you were created for, not a quiet existence spent waiting for permission, but a blazing testimony that fear was never strong enough to cage you, control. There comes a point when you realize that your energy is too valuable to be poured into proving your worth to those who refuse to see it. The endless need to explain, control, to convince, to be validated is nothing but a silent contract that chains you to smallness. Every time you beg to be understood, you shrink your own voice, control. Every time you compromise your values to keep someone else comfortable, you betray yourself. And when you betray yourself enough times, control, you stop recognizing the person staring back at you in the mirror. That is the true danger of seeking approval. It doesn't just rob you of respect, control. It robs you of identity. The human spirit was not designed to live in submission to the shifting opinions of others, control. The essence of strength is not in making yourself agreeable, but in becoming undeniable. You do not earn power by being liked. You earn it by being solid, by being whole, control, by being rooted so deeply in who you are that no storm can bend you, no voice can silence you, and no rejection can dismantle you. When you stop begging to be chosen, control, you awaken to the realization that you already are the choice, not for everyone, but for the life you are meant to live, control. The moment you no longer fear being overlooked is the moment you begin to command presence without saying a word. Because presence is not about being noticed, control. It is about being undeniable in your authenticity. When you carry yourself with certainty, when you align your actions with your standards, control. The world cannot help but feel your gravity. People sense it without you even trying. The energy of someone who does not chase, who does not cling, control, who does not bend just to be accepted. That energy is rare, and because it is rare, it is powerful, control. You were not meant to dilute yourself to fit into spaces too small for your soul. If someone cannot see your value, it does not mean it is not there, control. It simply means they are not capable of perceiving it. And why would you ever reduce yourself to match the blindness of another, control? There is nothing more liberating than understanding that you do not have to convince anyone of your worth. Your worth is not a debate. It is not a negotiation. It is a truth, control, and truth does not demand permission to exist. The deepest transformation happens when you stop asking the world, am I enough? And you start declaring, control, I am more than enough. Because the one who knows their value will never be enslaved by the fear of being unwanted. Control, they will walk away without hesitation from anything that does not honor them. They will remain unshaken when others doubt them. They will rise above rejection, control, because they know rejection is not the end, it is redirection toward alignment. This is the power that shifts everything. When you no longer play small to be tolerated, control, you begin to attract the very opportunities, the very people, and the very life that resonates with your true frequency. You are no longer a prisoner of approval, control, but the master of your own destiny. And that, more than anything else, is what makes you unstoppable. The mind will always try to return you to comfort, control, because comfort feels safe. But what feels safe is often the very thing keeping you small. The familiar is seductive. It whispers to you that maybe you've done enough, control. Maybe this is as far as you were meant to go. That whisper is not truth. It is the voice of resistance, and if you listen to it, it will chain you to mediocrity. Control. Greatness never grows in the soil of comfort. Growth requires friction. Progress demands pressure. Control. And transformation comes only when you are willing to shatter the walls that your own excuses have built around you. Control. Every time you face that internal resistance and push past it, you create evidence that you are stronger than your limitations. Control. You begin to prove to yourself that you are not defined by your doubt, your fear, or your hesitation. You are defined by your capacity to move anyway. Control. That shift is where power is born, not in waiting for the fear to vanish, but in learning that fear does not control you. Once you realize this, hesitation loses its grip, control, and momentum begins to carry you forward like a current too strong to fight. The human spirit is designed for expansion. When you deny that, you feel restless, unfulfilled, control, and disconnected from your own potential. But the moment you step into the space of challenge, control, the moment you stop waiting for the right time and take action, despite the discomfort, life begins to open in ways you once thought impossible. And the truth is control. You already know what you need to do. Deep down, you've always known. The hesitation is not because you don't have clarity, it's because the action demands courage, control. And courage always feels heavier than it looks. But courage is not about removing the weight. It's about learning to carry it with strength and with dignity, control. The more you carry, the stronger you become until the very things that once felt impossible now feel natural. What was once overwhelming becomes routine, control, and what once required all of you now demands only a fraction of your strength. That is the nature of growth. It multiplies your capacity, expands your vision, control, and reshapes what you believe is possible for your life. And as you rise, control, you begin to understand that the path was never about proving anything to the world. It was about proving something to yourself, that you are capable, that you are resilient, control, that you can stand in the storm and not only survive, but evolve. The world respects those who refuse to collapse, who choose movement over paralysis, control, who embody strength not as a mask, but as a lived reality. That kind of strength is undeniable, magnetic, and unshakable. Control. It does not need to scream to be noticed. It is simply felt. So stop waiting for permission. Stop waiting for the perfect conditions. The conditions are never perfect, control. But you were not designed for perfection. You were designed for persistence. And persistence will always take you further than talent, further than luck, control, further than any advantage you think you lack. When persistence becomes who you are, nothing can hold you. You stop questioning if you are capable because, control. You stop begging for validation because you already embody it. And in that moment, you stop chasing the life you want and you start creating it. Control. The deeper you step into your power, the less you feel the need to chase. Control. You stop scrambling for validation because you finally understand that real value doesn't negotiate with desperation. It doesn't lower itself to be seen. Control. It rises to be respected. The more you realize this, the more unshakable you become. Control. Because your worth stops being something others can hand to you or take away from you. It becomes something you carry, something unbreakable. Control. Something no rejection or dismissal can erase. That shift is where true confidence is born, not from arrogance, not from ego, control, but from the quiet certainty that you do not need to prove your existence to anyone. People who don't yet see their own value live like shadows, shrinking themselves. Control. Bending, conforming, hoping to be noticed. But the moment you awaken to your strength, you stop bending. You start standing. Control. You stop waiting for permission. You begin commanding space. You stop seeking acknowledgement. You embody it. Control. This is why those who own their presence can walk into any room without speaking a word and yet capture attention. They don't demand it. they radiate it. Control, it is not performance, it is essence. Control. This is the moment when you realize that the greatest battle is not against others, but against the weakness within yourself that wants to be liked more than it wants to be respected. Control. That weakness must die because it will rob you of your greatness. Every time you water yourself down, every time you silence your truth to avoid discomfort. Control. You hand over your power, and power given away is rarely returned. The world takes what you give it. If you give away your dignity for a drop of validation, control, you will live thirsty forever. But when you rise above that weakness, you find strength that is undeniable. You find that not everyone is meant to understand you. Control. Not everyone is meant to accept you. And that is not only okay, it is necessary. Because rejection is not proof of your lack, it is proof of your distinction. Control. You are not for everyone, and you should never want to be. The moment you try to be universally liked, you become invisible. Control. A diluted version of yourself that blends into the noise. The world doesn't remember noise, it remembers power, it remembers clarity. It remembers those who refuse to bend. Control. True respect begins when you refuse to beg for it. True attraction begins when you stop seeking it. True love begins when you no longer plead for it. Because then, control. And only then, the world sees you as complete, not as someone waiting to be completed. And completeness is magnetic, wholeness is irresistible, strength is undeniable. Control. That is why the people who chase approval are forgotten, while those who embody certainty are remembered long after they leave the room. You must ask yourself, control. Do you want to live as someone who constantly reaches outward, hoping someone will finally hand you worth, or as someone who commands it from within? Control. Allowing others only to witness what has already been established. That choice determines everything about your future, your relationships, your opportunities, your peace. Control. One path makes you a beggar, the other makes you a force, and forces cannot be ignored. Forces cannot be overlooked. Control. Forces do not chase, they create the gravity that others cannot escape. When you understand this, everything changes. You stop waiting for love, you radiate it. Control. You stop chasing attention, you draw it without effort. You stop fearing rejection, you use it as confirmation that you are standing in truth. And the moment that clicks, control, the world bends differently around you because you finally stopped bending for it. The moment you stop chasing validation is the moment you step into real power. Control. Because what people admire most is not the one who bends for approval, but the one who stands unshaken when approval never comes. Control. That's the paradox. When you stop trying to impress, you become impressive. When you stop demanding attention, attention naturally finds its way to you. Control. The world respects what doesn't beg for respect. It gravitates toward what is already certain of its worth. And when you embody that certainty, control, you walk into every room with an energy that cannot be denied. Most people don't realize that attraction, admiration, and influence are never created by outward effort alone. Control. They are born from an inner state that whispers, I don't need you to see me in order to know that I exist. That quiet assurance is more magnetic than any words, control, gestures, or performance could ever be. It cannot be faked because the body betrays the truth. Desperation leaks through the smallest cracks, through tone of voice, posture, control, and even silence. But so does confidence. A man or woman who is rooted in their own being radiates something others cannot fully explain but deeply feel. Control. That is why the ones who rise above aren't necessarily the loudest, flashiest, or most aggressive. They are the ones who rest in their own presence. Control. Knowing that what they are is already enough. This is not arrogance. Arrogance seeks to dominate and prove superiority. True inner power does not seek. It simply is. Control. It doesn't shout. It doesn't perform. It doesn't chase. And paradoxically, that's what makes people lean in. Because in a world flooded with noise, control, calm certainty is louder than any scream. In a culture addicted to validation, someone who moves without asking for it feels like a rare force, and rarity always draws desire. Control. The deepest shift comes when you stop trying to manipulate outcomes and instead refine who you are becoming. Not for others, not for applause, control, but because your own standard demands it. You don't sharpen your mind to impress. You sharpen it because clarity is freedom. Control. You don't build discipline to be admired. You build it because chaos has no hold on someone who governs themselves. Control, you don't cultivate strength so others will fear losing you. You cultivate it because weakness is a prison you refuse to live in. Control. And that refusal transforms you into someone who doesn't have to ask for loyalty, attention, or love. It comes because you are no longer chasing it. Control. Every time you stop scrolling for validation, every time you pull back your energy from proving your worth, you are reclaiming fragments of yourself. Control. Those fragments accumulate until one day you realize you are no longer fragmented, you are whole. That wholeness is what others feel. Control. It is why they can't quite put words to the energy you give off, but they know it commands something, not through force, but through presence, not through need, control, but through certainty. And here's the truth: the world does not reward those who cry for attention, it rewards those who no longer require it. It bends control, subtly but inevitably, toward those who are rooted in their own gravity, because the strongest magnet is not desperation, it is self possession, control. And the moment you step into that, you discover you were never waiting for others to notice you. You were waiting for yourself to finally see who you are. And once you do, control. Nothing can take that power from you. Every time you step into the world, people will unconsciously test the strength of your presence. Control. They will measure whether you bend under pressure or stand unshaken in your truth. They will sense whether your worth is something you've already claimed. Control. Or if you are silently waiting for their validation. The truth is, life never rewards the one who begs for acceptance, control, but it always bows to the one who carries certainty without apology. Your energy becomes your shield, your silence becomes your power, and your decisions become your proof, control. When you no longer need permission to be who you are, you become unstoppable. Strength is not about being louder, more aggressive, or more demanding, control. Strength is about the quiet intensity that radiates from someone who knows where they're going, even if no one else understands it. It's about moving with clarity, control, not desperation. It's about showing up without needing to prove anything, because the proof is already in your discipline, your patience, your choices, control. People can argue with your words, but they can never deny the consistency of your actions. And when your actions align with the power of your conviction, control, your presence speaks before you even open your mouth. Most people chase recognition because they are afraid of being invisible. But invisibility isn't the enemy, control. It is in the seasons where no one is watching that you are forged. It's in the silence that you build yourself into someone who doesn't crumble under scrutiny, control. Someone who doesn't need to be seen to know their value. By the time the spotlight comes, you are no longer performing for it. You are simply being, control, and that being radiates louder than anything you could force. This is why those who seem effortless are magnetic. Their effort wasn't in chasing attention, control. It was in becoming undeniable. When you stop needing to prove yourself, the world feels your shift. Your energy no longer says, please notice me. It says, control. You can notice me or not. It changes nothing. That is where freedom begins, control. Because the one who cannot be controlled by external approval becomes the one who directs the current of every room they enter. Control. Influence belongs not to the desperate, but to the disciplined. Authority belongs not to the loud, but to the grounded. Control. Respect belongs not to the one who demands it, but to the one who embodies it. If you want to stand apart, stop trying to stand out. Instead, control. Build yourself so deeply that standing apart is inevitable. Every hour you invest in mastering yourself, every temptation you resist, every boundary you enforce, control, every truth you honor carves you into someone rare, and rarity doesn't need to announce itself. Rarity speaks through presence, control, through the subtle but undeniable gravity that pulls others in. The ones who carry this energy never beg for connection because connection finds them, control. Your greatest advantage in this life will never be found in chasing approval, but in mastering the art of indifference to it. Not cold indifference, not arrogance, control, but a calm detachment that says, I am whole with or without you. That is the stance that makes people lean in, that makes them curious, control. That makes them respect you even if they don't understand you. The less you chase, the more you attract, the less you need, the more you command, control. And when you finally stand in that space of unshakable certainty, you will see that the attention you once fought for now fights to find you.